The gavel hadn't fallen, but the room was already holding its breath. An old man sat at the defense table, hands folded, eyes fixed ahead. Not a word, not a glance. Just the hum of ceiling lights, loud as thunder in the hush. Outside, the courthouse steps glowed in late afternoon sun, shadows stretching long. Inside, whispers slid through the benches. Some said he was confused, others saw something different. Stillness, the kind soldiers recognize in each other. Phones lifted. Screens went live. A bailiff near the back caught a glimpse on the old man's wrist. Ink. Faded to a ghost. 3 parallel lines, a fourth striking through. His chest tightened, his breath caught. Whatever that mark meant, it didn't belong in a traffic case. The ceiling lights buzzed faintly in Riverton County Courthouse, a low hum that seemed louder in the silence. Wood-paneled walls seemed to drink in every sound. The air carried the stale weight of waiting. At the defense table sat Samuel Carter, 84 years old, thin but upright, his back straight, his hands resting on oak worn smooth by decades of use. His skin, weathered and pale, clung to veins raised like dry riverbeds. His suit was dark, pressed, though threadbare at the cuffs. Pale blue eyes locked forward, unblinking. Across from him, Judge Richard Halbrook leaned forward. His robe swayed as he shifted, chin jutting toward the defendant. He was a man long accustomed to control, his words honed from years of command in this room. For 30 years he'd ruled this courtroom, and for 30 years he'd watched men in uniforms come and go, broken, boastful, or both. His own father had returned from Korea silent and shattered, dying slow in a VA hospital, while the heroes got parades. To him, the bench was a stage, and silence was a challenge. "Mr. Carter," Halbrook's voice boomed, practiced, theatrical. "This court will not tolerate contempt, a minor violation, failure to stop at a sign, expired registration, and here you sit, dragging us through spectacle. Do you place yourself above the law?" The gallery stirred. Spectators leaned forward. A handful raised phones, recording with sly movements. In small towns, courtroom drama was rare, and this one promised more than traffic code. Samuel did not answer. His posture remained the same. His gaze, steady and unwavering, fixed on the seal of the state, carved into the wood behind the bench. Halbrook's lips curled. "Your silence speaks volumes, sir. Men of your age cling to faded glories. Perhaps you once wore a uniform. Many did. But my father wore one too. He came home broken. You? You sit here like a king. Don't mistake years for authority. This is my court." Beside Samuel, his attorney Ellen Parker stood. She was young, shoulders tense, clutching a folder too tightly. Her voice shook, but she forced words out. "Your Honor, my client is 84 years old. He served his country. This case is a simple traffic. Sit down, counselor." Halbrook cut her off. The gavel cracked, sharp and sudden. The sound ricocheted around the chamber. "Service or not, he will respect this court. No man hides behind age or medals here." The weight in the room thickened. Some in the gallery smirked at the judge's dominance. Others shifted uncomfortably, recognizing cruelty dressed in formality. Samuel's only movement came slow, deliberate. His right hand slid across the table, fingertips brushing the inside of his left wrist. The gesture lasted only seconds, almost invisible. But Sergeant Blake Jennings saw it. He stood at the courtroom door, crisp in his bailiff's uniform, mid-20s, his stance straight from drill field habits. His gaze caught the faint mark along Samuel's wrist, lines of ink, faded near to nothing. 3 parallel, a fourth crossing. Not an anchor, not an eagle, not any crest Jennings had seen in the books, but he'd heard whispers in ranger school, marks that belonged to units buried in redacted files, marks that never made it to official registries. His chest tightened. His gaze locked on the old man. Halbrook pressed his advantage, voice rising. "This is no costume hall, Mr. Carter. You sit silent, parading age as authority. I remind you, in this chamber, the gavel rules, not relics." Ellen lowered her head, cheeks flushed. She gripped the folder tighter, lips pressed thin. The audience whispered louder. "Old man's lost it," one muttered. Another shook her head, saying, "It's just a ticket." Halbrook slammed the gavel again. "I will not ask again, Mr. Carter. You will acknowledge this court, or you will leave in chains." For the first time, Samuel moved. Slowly, He turned his head, eyes leaving the seal to meet the judge's face. His expression was calm, his gaze steady. A sorrow lingered there, too old and too heavy for words. Holbrook faltered, only for a heartbeat. He mistook that silence for defiance, not for the quiet weight it carried. Pride bristled, demanding escalation. "Bailiff Jennings," the judge snapped, voice sharp. "Stand ready. If this man refuses again, you will act." Jennings' jaw flexed. His eyes never left the faint tattoo, burned into Samuel's skin. That ghost mark gnawed at him, whispering of something older, deeper, forbidden. Samuel lowered his hand back to the table, the gesture ending as if nothing had passed. He sat once more in absolute stillness. Holbrook jabbed a finger toward him. "Answer me. Are you mocking this court with silence? Do you think yourself untouchable? Speak." The judge's voice thundered, his finger stabbing the air. Samuel did not move. The gallery froze. Phones hovered, recording. The hum of the ceiling lights swelled again, louder, oppressive. No one spoke. No one breathed. And in that silence, the room began to tip. Not in law, not in decree, but in the direction of the man who had not said a word. Judge Holbrook's gavel came down hard, a sharp crack that bounced off the walls. "Enough," he snapped, his face reddening. "This courtroom will not be mocked by silence." His gaze cut to the bailiff. "Sergeant Jennings, bring him forward. If he clings to some trinket, strip it away." Jennings's shoulders tensed. His eyes drifted again to the faint lines etched into Carter's wrist. 3 strokes, slashed by a 4th. It wasn't anything he'd seen in manuals. Not an emblem of pride. It looked older. He hesitated. "Do your duty, Sergeant," Holbrook barked. The command cracked like a whip. Jennings stepped forward, boots echoing across the tile. The gallery shifted, murmurs rolling through the benches. Phones tilted higher. Everyone leaned toward the scene unfolding. Carter did not resist. His left arm rose slowly, steady, as though he were surrendering to no one but time. Jennings reached down. His fingers brushed the old man's skin. The fluorescent hum split like glass. Through the crack came another sound, rotor wash beating the night sky. Jennings staggered, blinking. Lungs suddenly filled with smoke and cordite. Heat pressed against him. Rain pelted his face. It wasn't his memory, and yet it poured into him. 1,969. A jungle valley drowning in fire. Samuel Carter crouched inside a rattling UH-1, helmet tilted, radio pressed against his mouth. Mud streaked his cheeks. His voice carried steady across the chaos. Nightfall R-12 standing by. Below, the valley burned. Muzzle flashes cut the dark. Mortars shattered the earth. Voices screamed through the headset. "They're closing in. We can't hold." Carter's tone never cracked. "Hold position. Fire mission inbound." He called coordinates with the precision of a surgeon, his words slicing through static. The roar of artillery followed, tearing the canopy apart, shoving back the enemy with thunder. But the headset didn't go quiet. It carried names, cries, breaths cut short. 100 voices pressed through, each one clinging to the call sign that steadied them in the dark. Jennings jerked his hand back as if burned. The vision vanished. The courtroom returned, the buzz of lights loud again, sweat cold on his skin. Holbrook's voice tore into the silence. "What are you waiting for? Remove it." Jennings's voice came out tight. "Sir, there's nothing to remove." Holbrook's brows knitted, seeing only refusal. He slammed the gavel again, wood splintering under his grip. "Contempt of court. This farce ends now." The spectators shifted, restless. Phones hovered higher, capturing every word. A woman's phone slipped from her hand, cracking on the tile. No one looked down. Ellen Parker leaned toward her client, whispering so only he could hear. "Mr. Carter, please, say something. Anything. They'll take you." Her voice quivered. Carter's eyes didn't flicker. They stayed fixed on the seal behind the bench, as though the wood carried a horizon only he could see. Meanwhile, in the last row, a young man in a navy suit scrolled rapidly on his phone. His name was Daniel Ward, aide to a local congressman. He hadn't meant to pay attention, but something about the name Carter had snagged his mind. His grandfather had died in Echo Valley, KIA. Body never recovered. And now this old man. This silence. This name. Daniel's fingers trembled as he typed, "Samuel Carter, Nightfall R-12, Echo Valley." For a moment, nothing. Then his screen flooded with results. Fragmented records. Declassified scraps from forgotten files. Words leapt out. Echo Valley. Unauthorized operations. Losses classified. He tapped open one file, its edges blacked out by redaction. But one line remained clear. Nightfall R12, radio operator, sole survivor. Below it, another line made his stomach drop. KIA list, Echo Valley, November 1969, 117 names. He scrolled down, and there it was. Ward, Thomas J. Corporal. Radio contact maintained until 0347 hours. Last transmission. Nightfall is still up. Tell them we held. Daniel's hands shook. His grandfather's file. His grandfather's last words. And the call sign, Nightfall R12. The man who had heard him die. Halbrook leaned forward, sweat beading his forehead. You sit there like a king. I'll break this act. Bailiff, prepare the cuffs. Jennings didn't move. His jaw tightened. His eyes stayed on Carter's wrist, the faint ink gnawing at him. From the gallery came a sudden sound. A chair scraped. An older man, stooped but broad-shouldered, stood. His cap bore the faded stitching of Vietnam service. His lips parted, whispering words not heard in decades. Nightfall, he breathed. God help us. Nightfall. The whispers spread. A ripple moved through the benches, low and urgent. What did he say? Nightfall. Is that a unit? Halbrook pounded the gavel again, voice cracking with anger. Silence! This court will not indulge fairy tales. But the crowd wasn't listening. They stared at the old man at the defense table, and at the veteran standing pale in the back row, his hand trembling against his cap. Jennings turned slightly, catching the veteran's gaze. A silent exchange passed, recognition, fear, awe. Then Jennings faced forward again. Carter hadn't moved. His chest rose, fell. His silence weighed heavier now, pressing into the room. Ellen shuffled papers, her hands shaking. She whispered again, pleading. Please. They don't understand who you are. They won't stop until you give them something. Still, nothing. Halbrook's face twisted with triumph, mistaking silence for surrender. You see? An empty man clinging to nothing. I will not be humiliated by relics. He raised the gavel high. This man will respect this court, or he will be carried from it. Jennings stood locked in place. His voice was low, but clear. With respect, sir. He's not empty. Halbrook snapped his head toward him. What did you say? Jennings swallowed hard. I don't know what that mark is. But I know it's not nothing. I felt it. The gallery buzzed, tension rising like static. Halbrook slammed the gavel again, desperate to restore control. You are a bailiff, not a historian. Do as you are ordered. Jennings stayed rooted, jaw clenched. The air thickened. Silence pressed in, every ear strained for what would come next. And Carter, immovable, carried that silence like a shield. Phones streamed. The world beyond the courthouse steps had begun to listen. Halbrook raised the gavel once more, knuckles white. I will have respect, or I will have blood on my floor. Either way, this ends now. The veteran in the back sat slowly, cap clutched to his chest, eyes wet. He whispered again, but louder this time, voice carrying across the benches. Nightfall R12. Echo Valley. The words cut the air like a blade. Jennings flinched. The gallery gasped, and for the first time, doubt flickered across Judge Halbrook's face. The courthouse was no longer a place of law. It was a pressure chamber, ready to crack. Every phone was raised, every breath caught. The gavel, once absolute, now sounded like wood on stone. Judge Halbrook's face glistened with sweat. His hand trembled slightly, but he lifted the gavel high. Bailiff, cuff him. End this charade. Sergeant Jennings did not move. His boots were nailed to the floor, his eyes locked on Samuel Carter. Halbrook's voice cracked. Do it. Jennings' answer came low, controlled. Sir, I can't. The gallery gasped. The sound rolled through the benches like a wave. Halbrook's eyes bulged. You dare defy. But his words died, because Samuel Carter finally moved. He leaned forward just enough for his voice to carry. Rough, steady, threaded with memory. Operation Nightfall. Radio call Romeo 1-2, Echo Valley. The air collapsed into silence. His pale eyes drifted over the room. 63 hours, no extraction, no resupply. 117 voices. I heard them all. A pause. His jaw tightened. When the valley fell, only mine remained. The words struck harder than the gavel ever could. They weren't performance. They were confession. The gallery froze. An older man in the back, Vietnam cap crushed in his hands, stumbled to his feet. His voice cracked. Christ, he's Nightfall? I thought they were all gone. The benches erupted. Murmurs turned to shouts. Nightfall. That's classified. No, I've heard of it. Black Ops in '69. Phones streamed. Comments scrolling. Some viewers scoffed. Others wrote in disbelief. A few simply typed, "He's real." Halbrook slammed his gavel, wood splintering. Enough! This is a circus! Meaningless words from a senile old man, but no one was looking at him. Every eye was on Carter. Jennings stood straighter, his hand rising almost involuntarily. He saluted. The gesture was crisp, precise, undeniable. The gallery went still. A uniformed soldier saluting the frail old man at the table said more than any argument. Halbrook stammered, face blotchy. "Sergeant! He is under arrest!" "What do you think you're—" Jennings cut him off without looking. His voice carried across the chamber. "With respect, sir, he's no criminal." His eyes never left Carter. "He's the last man of Nightfall." Gasps swelled again. Some spectators rose. Others covered their mouths. The word Nightfall echoed like a drumbeat. Then, footsteps. Heavy. Deliberate. The double doors swung wide. General Reed Hayes entered, flanked by 2 officers. His chest bore rows of ribbons, his uniform immaculate. His presence consumed the room. The crowd parted instinctively, creating a clear path down the aisle. Phones tilted, capturing every step. Halbrook straightened, desperate. "General Hayes, this is irregular. This is a civilian court." But Hayes didn't glance at him. His eyes locked on Samuel Carter. He stopped in front of the defendant's table. Silence wrapped the chamber again. Hayes studied the old man for a long moment, gaze dropping to the faint ink on his wrist. 3 lines. A 4th cutting through. Recognition hardened his face. Slowly, deliberately, Hayes straightened. His right hand rose in a flawless salute. The words followed, low but ringing. "Welcome back. Nightfall R12. The reaction was instantaneous. A wave of sound, half gasp, half cry, tore through the gallery. Ellen Parker pressed both hands to her mouth. Jennings snapped his heels together, salute unbroken. Carter inclined his head, the faintest nod, as if acknowledging an equal. Halbrook sputtered. This is absurd. He is a defendant. He is—" Hayes's stare pinned him to the bench. His voice cut steel. "You have no idea who sits before you. This man does not stand trial. He is history." The gavel slipped from Halbrook's grip, clattering against the desk. The room no longer belonged to him. Near the door, the veteran in the faded cap straightened, shoulders trembling. He raised his hand in salute, tears streaking his weathered cheeks. Another veteran followed, then another. Soon half the gallery stood, saluting or pressing hands to hearts. Phones streamed every second. Across the country, strangers watched in real time as a forgotten ghost was resurrected. Ellen Parker rose, voice barely audible. "My God." Hayes lowered his salute, his jaw set. "Your silence saved men." Your silence carried their last words. His throat tightened, but his voice held. "And it will never be mocked in this country again." The words settled like stone. Halbrook sat frozen, gavel still in hand. He'd spent 30 years wielding it. 30 years believing wood and words were power. Now, in the silence, he finally understood. True authority was never given. It was earned, and he'd just tried to break a man who earned his in blood. Carter sat quietly, eyes forward. He bore the attention, the reverence, the disbelief, with the same stillness he had carried since the first gavel struck. He didn't speak again. He didn't need to. The echoes of Nightfall spoke for him. For a moment, no one moved. The echo of General Hayes's salute lingered like thunder after lightning. Every phone was raised, every breath stalled. Samuel Carter did not rush to stand. He lifted himself slowly, joints stiff, but his back unbowed. His presence filled the room more than the robe, more than the gavel, more than the uniforms. Jennings held his salute until Carter nodded once in acknowledgement. Ellen Parker's eyes shimmered, her papers forgotten on the table. She had defended clients for petty crimes. Now she realized she had been sitting beside a man whose silence outweighed every verdict she'd ever heard. General Hayes faced the crowd, his voice clipped but heavy with command. This man is Samuel Carter. Radio designation Nightfall R-12. In Echo Valley, he held the line for 63 hours without support. His voice carried artillery, air strikes, rescue calls, and when 117 fell, he stayed, alone. The benches creaked as people stood, some saluting, others clutching their chests. A veteran in the back whispered, "He's the one." He never stopped transmitting. His voice cracked on the last word. Carter finally rose to full height. His knees wavered, but his gaze was steady. Jennings stepped forward instinctively to steady him, but Carter raised a hand, stopping him. He would walk under his own strength. He always had. The gallery parted, a silent aisle forming. People stood shoulder to shoulder, heads bowed, phones trembling in their hands. As Carter passed, Daniel Ward stepped forward from the last row. His voice shook. "Sir, Corporal Thomas Ward was my grandfather." Carter stopped. He turned, studying the young man's face. For the first time, his expression softened. He reached out, placing a weathered hand on Ward's shoulder. "Your grandfather was brave," Samuel said quietly. He held his position until the end. His last words were to tell his squad to trust Nightfall. To trust me. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. "I heard every man fall that night. I carry every name." Ward's face crumpled. Carter squeezed his shoulder once, then continued toward the door. He stopped at the threshold. Turned back once, not to the judge, not to the cameras, to Ellen Parker, the nervous young lawyer who'd tried to defend him. Their eyes met. He nodded. A small gesture. But Ellen understood. She'd done her job. She'd stood when standing mattered. She saluted. Clumsy. Civilian. But Samuel returned it. Crisp. Perfect. Soldier to soldier. At the aisle's end, the veteran in the faded cap saluted, hand quivering. Carter stopped before him. Their eyes locked. No words passed. None were needed. Both men understood the weight of what had been carried and what had been lost. Then Carter stepped through the doors. The hallway outside was lined with faces, officers, clerks, strangers who had streamed in after hearing the uproar. They pressed back against the walls, making space. Sunlight cut across the marble as the courthouse doors opened wide. The crowd outside fell silent. Flags stirred in the breeze. Carter paused on the threshold, light catching the lines of his face. For a brief moment, his lips moved, barely a whisper. Names. Dozens of them. Names he had carried for 50 years. Hayes stepped onto the landing behind him, his salute held high. Jennings mirrored him, eyes glistening. Ellen Parker stood at the doorway, her hand over her heart. Carter descended the steps, each stride deliberate, each step echoing with memory. At the bottom of the steps, his faded blue truck sat waiting. Rusted tailgate. Registration expired. He climbed in. The engine coughed once, then caught. As he drove past the courthouse steps, his eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. Hayes's salute never wavered. Carter didn't wave, didn't nod. He simply drove. The valley had taken his voice once. The courtroom had given it back. But silence, he'd learned long ago, was the only language that never lied. The truck turned the corner, taillights fading in the autumn haze, and Nightfall R-12 disappeared into the afternoon, a ghost returning to the quiet he'd earned.